The cold metal floor of the spaceport echoed with Jae-won's measured footsteps. Tall and lean, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, he carried a standard-issue data tablet that seemed to pulse with an urgent message. Around him, New Incheon's spaceport hummed with the constant movement of interstellar travelers, traders, and bureaucrats. Yuna stood nearby, her fingers dancing across a complex communication console. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, revealing a concentration that bordered on intensity. Something had caught her attention, a signal that didn't quite match standard communication protocols. "Jae-won," she called, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of the spaceport. "Look at this." He approached, his military-trained posture contrasting with her more relaxed research stance. The screen displayed a fragmented transmission, its encryption unlike anything they had seen before. Scattered words and broken data streams suggested a narrative of tension, of something hidden. "It's from the outer colonies," Yuna muttered, her fingers continuing to work the complex interface. "But something's wrong with this transmission." Jae-won leaned closer. Years of working together had created an unspoken language between them. Where others saw random data, they saw patterns, potential stories waiting to be uncovered. The transmission hinted at a conflict, not a military engagement but something more insidious. Bureaucratic manipulation, systemic control, words that suggested a deeper, more complex problem brewing in the distant reaches of human-controlled space. "We need to investigate," Jae-won said, his voice calm but determined. Yuna nodded. Their research vessel, the Celestial Probe, was already prepared for long-range exploration. What had started as a routine communication analysis was rapidly transforming into something much larger. The spaceport around them continued its rhythmic dance of arrivals and departures. Massive starships docked and undocked, their hulls gleaming under artificial lighting. Travelers from a dozen different colonies moved with purpose, each carrying their own stories, their own secrets. But for Jae-won and Yuna, this moment was different. The fragmented transmission represented more than just another data point. It was a thread, a potential revelation about the complex systems that governed their expansive, interconnected human civilization. Yuna began preparing the initial data packets for deeper analysis. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, translating raw signal data into comprehensible information. Each decrypted segment revealed more of the hidden narrative. Jae-won watched her work, his mind already mapping potential routes, potential risks. Their mission was never about simple exploration. It was about understanding, about uncovering truths that powerful systems often preferred to keep hidden. The spaceport's announcement system crackled to life, listing departure times and incoming vessels. But for them, the real journey was just beginning. A journey that would take them far beyond the comfortable, controlled environments of New Incheon. "We'll need to modify our standard communication protocols," Yuna said, breaking the momentary silence. "Whatever this transmission represents, it's designed to be partially obscured," Jae-won nodded. Their reputation within the Interstellar Research Division was built on precisely these moments, finding meaning in the spaces between standard information, understanding the narratives that bureaucracies tried to hide. As they gathered their equipment, the first hints of a much larger story began to take shape. A story of control, of resistance, of systems pushing against human potential, and they were about to become its primary investigators. The Celestial Probe waited on Launch Pad 7, its sleek design a testament to human engineering. Soon, it would carry them into the vast, unknown territories where this mysterious transmission originated. Neither Jae-won nor Yuna spoke about the potential dangers. They didn't need to. Their shared history, their professional partnership, was built on an understanding that went beyond words. They were about to uncover something significant, something that could change everything. The spaceport continued, its endless rhythm, unaware that two of its most determined researchers were about to embark on a journey that would challenge the very foundations of their known universe. The Celestial Probe glided through the dark expanse of space, its external sensors scanning the surrounding environment with precision. Inside the vessel, Jae-won and Yuna worked in near silence, their movements synchronized after years of partnership. Frontier Research Station Epsilon loomed ahead, a massive structure that seemed to blend into the surrounding asteroid field. Something immediately felt wrong. The station's external lights flickered irregularly, and no standard communication responses came through their standard channels. "No response on any frequency," Yuna said, her fingers moving quickly across the communication panel. Her brow furrowed, a sign she was processing something complex. Jae-won adjusted the ship's approach vector. Years of space navigation made the complex maneuver look almost casual. "Prepare emergency communication protocols," he instructed. The station grew larger in their view screen. Its outer hull showed signs of unusual stress, micro-impacts that didn't match standard space debris patterns. Deliberate damage, perhaps, or something more sinister? As they approached, a sudden burst of encrypted data flashed across their screens. Fragmented, incomplete, but definitely not random. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Yuna's fingers flew across the decryption algorithms. "These aren't standard communication codes," she muttered. "It's like someone deliberately scrambled the transmission." The celestial probe's docking sequence initiated automatically. External cameras revealed corridors that looked abandoned yet somehow maintained. Lights flickered in specific patterns, almost like a coded message. Jae-won checked his environmental suit. Standard procedure dictated complete protection during unknown station investigations. Something about this place felt different. Tense. Waiting. "I'm detecting minimal life signs," Yuna reported. Her voice carried a hint of professional concern, but they're strange. Not completely human, not completely mechanical. The airlock cycled. Cold artificial air rushed into their vessel. Their first steps onto the station made no sound. Specialized boots designed to minimize environmental interaction. Corridors stretched before them lined with research terminals. Each station looked recently used yet completely abandoned. Holographic displays hung frozen mid-transmission. Computer screens displayed partial data streams that dissolved into random pixel patterns. "Look," Jae-won pointed to a central research area. Multiple screens showed fragmented data about genetic modifications, spatial anomalies, and something labeled quantum adaptive responses. Yuna moved to a primary terminal, her hands moving swiftly to bypass security protocols. Years of technical training gave her near-instant access. What she found made her pause. Research logs suggested experiments far beyond standard scientific exploration. Modifications, adaptations, something that hinted at fundamental changes to human biological structures. A sudden movement caught Jae-won's attention. A shadow. Quick, barely perceptible. Something was moving in the station's deeper sections. "We're not alone," he whispered. The station's internal systems began to shift. Lights changed color. Terminals began cycling through different data streams. It was almost like the entire station was responding to their presence. Yuna's communication device suddenly crackled. A voice, distorted, barely human. "You shouldn't be here." The transmission dissolved into static. Jae-won's hand moved instinctively to his sidearm. Training kicked in. Whatever was happening, they were deep in unknown territory. The station's internal architecture seemed to breathe. Walls shifted, corridors realigned. This was no longer a simple research station. This was something else entirely. Something was watching them, studying them. And they were now completely inside its domain. Their mission had just become far more complicated than a simple communication investigation. The first contact was happening, and nothing would be the same after this moment. The central research chamber pulsed with an eerie blue light. Jae-won and Yuna stood surrounded by data streams that seemed to move like living entities. Each terminal displayed fragments of information: scientific records, administrative communications, genetic research logs. "These documents," Yuna whispered, her fingers tracing holographic displays. "They're not just research. They're evidence of something much larger. Scattered across multiple screens were records detailing systematic manipulations, not just scientific experiments, but carefully orchestrated programs targeting specific colonial populations. Each document suggested a network of institutional control far more complex than simple bureaucratic processes. Jaewon downloaded data packets, his movements precise and calculated. Military training combined with research expertise made him methodical. Every piece of information could be crucial. A hidden file caught Yuna's attention. Encrypted, but not completely sealed. Her specialized decryption algorithms began working, peeling back layers of complex security protocols. "Look at this," she said, her voice carrying a mix of professional excitement and genuine concern. The decrypted file revealed a shocking narrative. Multiple interstellar colonies had been subjects of controlled genetic modification programs. Not random experiments, but systematic attempts to create adaptable human populations capable of surviving extreme environmental conditions. The documentation suggested these modifications weren't just scientific curiosity. They represented a calculated effort to reshape human potential without genuine consent. "They've been experimenting on entire population groups," Jaewon muttered, his voice low and controlled. Detailed genetic maps showed progressive modifications. Some colonies had been subtly altered over generations. Genetic markers suggesting enhanced respiratory capabilities, increased radiation resistance, accelerated healing processes. But beneath the scientific language, another story emerged. A story of institutional control, of populations being viewed, not as human beings but as experimental subjects. Yuna's communication device suddenly vibrated. An encrypted message, sender unknown. "You're getting close," the message read, "but some truths are dangerous." The station around them seemed to respond. Lights flickered. Distant mechanical sounds echoed through empty corridors. Something was listening. Something was watching. Jaewon transferred data into secure storage units. Each movement calculated, each decision measured. Years of professional training had prepared him for high-stakes information gathering. "We can't just report this," Yuna said. "Traditional reporting channels might be compromised." Her fingers moved across communication interfaces, establishing secure quantum communication channels. Channels that would be nearly impossible to intercept or trace. The research logs revealed a systematic approach. Select colonies identified as experimental zones. Populations monitored, modified, observed, all under the guise of scientific exploration and human advancement. But the underlying message was clear. Some institutions viewed human populations as resources to be manipulated, not living beings with inherent rights. A distant, mechanical sound grew louder. Something was moving within the station's deeper sections, something that didn't want their discoveries to leave this place. Jaewon's hand moved instinctively towards his specialized communication scrambler, a device designed to create immediate communication barriers and defensive protocols. "We need to move," he said quietly. Yuna nodded. Her fingers completed the data transfer. Massive amounts of information, evidence of institutional manipulation, now secured in their portable data units. The station's internal systems began to shift. Walls seemed to pulse, corridors realigned. It was almost as if the entire structure was a living entity, responding to their presence. Their discovery was more than a scientific revelation. It was a potential catalyst for fundamental changes in how human colonies were governed and understood. But first, they would need to escape. To ensure this information survived, to make certain the truth could not be buried or forgotten, the hidden truths were now in their possession. And nothing would remain the same. The quantum communication channel flickered with encrypted signals. Scattered across 3 different star systems, a group of unlikely allies began to connect. Researchers, marginalized colonists, and a few sympathetic, administrative personnel found themselves united by a single purpose. Jaewon's transmission mapped out the evidence they had discovered. Complex genetic modification programs, systematic population control, institutional manipulations that crossed ethical boundaries. Yuna worked alongside him, her fingers dancing across communication interfaces. Each transmission was carefully coded, designed to be unbreakable by standard tracking systems. Their first ally emerged from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a senior genetic researcher from the Mars Colonial Research Center, had been quietly collecting similar evidence for years. Her data matched their discoveries perfectly. "They've been treating entire populations like laboratory specimens," Rodriguez transmitted. Her voice carried a mix of scientific precision and human anger. Another transmission came from the Outer Rim colonies, a group of indigenous settlers who had long suspected something was wrong with their population's gradual genetic shifts. They had documentation, personal stories, medical records that supported the larger narrative. The resistance was taking shape, not a military movement, not a violent uprising, but a carefully coordinated effort to expose systemic institutional corruption. Communication nodes began to expand. Each participant added their piece of the puzzle: scientific documentation, personal testimonies, institutional records that revealed a complex network of control. Jaewon understood the risks. Exposing such a massive institutional conspiracy could potentially trigger significant social disruption. But the alternative, continued silent manipulation, was unacceptable. Yuna began developing communication strategies: how to present the information, how to ensure maximum visibility while protecting their sources. Each transmission was a carefully calculated move. Their network grew. A researcher from Europa's underwater colonies, a medical administrator from the Venus atmospheric research stations, a communication specialist from the deep space mining operations. Each brought unique perspectives. Each added critical information to their growing documentation. The resistance wasn't about destruction. It was about restoration, about returning fundamental human agency to populations that had been systematically controlled and modified without consent. Dr. Rodriguez's research revealed the full scope of the genetic modification programs. They weren't random experiments. They were calculated efforts to create adaptable human populations for specific environmental and economic purposes. Colonists from multiple star systems began sharing their experiences: subtle health changes, generational modifications, community-wide alterations that had gone unnoticed for decades. Jaewon mapped the connections. Each transmission, each piece of evidence created a more comprehensive picture of institutional manipulation. Yuna worked on communication security, quantum encryption, distributed communication networks that would be nearly impossible to trace or shut down. Their allies understood the risks. Discovery could mean professional destruction, potential legal persecution. But the truth was more important than personal safety. The resistance formation was delicate, a complex network of information, trust, and shared purpose. Scientists, colonists, administrators, all united by a single goal: exposing the truth and restoring human agency. A transmission from the Outer Rim colonies brought additional shocking revelations. Entire populations had been subtly modified without their knowledge. Genetic adaptations designed to make them more suitable for specific economic and environmental conditions. "We are not experimental subjects," became their unifying message. Each transmission, each shared document was an act of collective resistance, a statement that human beings were more than resources to be manipulated. Jaewon looked at Yuna. Years of partnership had prepared them for this moment, a moment of fundamental societal transformation. The resistance was forming, quietly, systematically, unstoppably, and nothing would remain the same. The global communication networks erupted with revelations. What had begun as a quiet investigation transformed into a massive public exposure of institutional manipulation. Jaewon and Yuna watched from their research vessel as the first major broadcasts went live. Millions of colonists across different star systems suddenly understood the truth about their genetic modifications. Government communication centers went into immediate emergency protocols, but it was too late. The information had spread faster than any institutional control mechanism could manage. The first global hearings began within weeks, not in traditional government chambers, but in open quantum communication platforms where every human could watch and participate. Dr. Elena Rodriguez presented the scientific evidence, detailed genetic records, modification timelines, comprehensive documentation that left no room for institutional denial. Colonial representatives from multiple star systems testified. Personal stories of generational changes, medical records showing systematic modifications. Each testimony added another layer of undeniable truth. The institutional response was complex. Some administrators attempted to defend the modifications as necessary for human expansion. Others tried to minimize the systematic nature of the programs. But the evidence was overwhelming. UNA managed the global communication networks, ensuring transparency, preventing information suppression. Her technical expertise became critical in maintaining open communication channels. Jaewon worked with legal teams, helping construct comprehensive cases against the responsible institutional networks. His military background provided strategic insights into institutional behavior. The transformation wasn't just about punishment, it was about creating new frameworks of human rights, new understanding of genetic research ethics, new protections for colonial populations. Quantum communication platforms became the new centers of democratic dialogue. Citizens from different star systems could now directly participate in decision-making processes. The first major outcome was the establishment of the Interstellar Human Rights Commission, an independent body with real investigative and legislative powers, designed to prevent future systematic manipulations. Genetic research would now require complete transparency, full population consent, comprehensive ethical review processes. Colonial populations gained new rights of self-determination, the ability to understand and control their own genetic narratives. Educational systems were redesigned. Teaching about institutional accountability became a core curriculum across human-controlled space. The transformation wasn't instantaneous, but it was fundamental. Institutional power structures that had operated in shadows for generations were suddenly exposed. Forced to explain, forced to change, Jaewon and Yuna watched these developments from their research vessel. Their initial investigation had triggered a massive societal recalibration. "We changed everything," Yuna said quietly. Jaewon nodded, not with violence, not with destruction, but with information, with truth. The quantum communication networks continued broadcasting, millions of conversations happening simultaneously, a new kind of human dialogue emerging. Colonial populations that had been systematically modified now had complete medical histories, complete genetic records, the right to understand their own biological narratives. The first generation of truly informed human populations was being born. Scientific research paradigms shifted, no longer about control, now about genuine exploration, genuine understanding. Institutional leaders who had participated in systematic manipulation faced comprehensive legal reviews, not as criminals, but as participants in a system that had lost its ethical foundation. The transformation represented more than a political shift. It was a fundamental reimagining of human potential. Colonies that had been viewed as experimental zones now became partners in human expansion. Their unique adaptations celebrated, not hidden. Yuna continued monitoring communication networks, ensuring the transformation remained transparent, ensuring no new institutional manipulations could emerge. Jaewon reviewed the ongoing legal processes, helping construct new frameworks of human rights that could adapt across different star systems. Their initial investigation had become a catalyst for comprehensive societal change. The universe was watching, and humanity was redefining itself, not through conflict, but through understanding.